Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video. Today's video is featuring the Clear Stamp and Die kit from Spellbinders for this month. It's got these adorable little fall gnomes in it and then their coordinating dies. This particular kit is $17.50. I will link that below if you're interested in checking it out. You can also subscribe and then just have the kits shipped to you. Or if you wait until after the month has passed, they typically sell them separately. So I've got all of my little guys here that I'm going to be stamping out. I am going to be doing some Copic coloring, and so I will be stamping them in ink that is safe for alcohol markers. I have a bunch that I really like, including this Hero Arts Intense Black one that I reach for pretty often. So I'm just going to stamp these out. This is an extra piece of cardstock, and then once I have them kind of stamped out, I will go ahead and move on to the background, which is really what I kind of wanted to focus on today. I think, besides story time, I think a big draw to my channel is that I do a lot of scene building cards. And so I just wanted to show you a simple scene that you can do with really no extra products outside of masking paper. And even then, you don't even necessarily need that. You can kind of make your own. Somebody had recently asked me in a video about the blending brushes versus the foam blenders, and if I had a preference, and the answer is no. I like them both. I do think that you can get a softer blend with the brushes versus the foam. So if you're looking for something that's going to be super soft, that's why I chose the brushes here, because I wanted it to kind of fade down and I didn't want to have to mask my sky. This is clearly sped up. I'm quick, but I am not that quick. But I do think the brushes give a little bit of a softer blend. But it just really honestly depends on what inks I'm using. That's how I pick what applicator I'm using, because they're all kind of seasoned for different things. And here I'm using the Hero Arts Reactive inks, which some of the colors are super bright. This green is a beautiful, bright, like neon green, and I loved it with all of the kind of fall colors. So I am using Eclipse masking paper. Like I said, you don't need to. I'll tell you how to get around that in a minute. But I'm just freehand cutting some hills. They don't have to be anything, fantastic. Here, I'm going to kind of lay them out, and then I realize it's up a little bit too high. You do want to save all of the pieces for this, because in order to get the green all the way up to the top of the hill, the sky does need to be masked. I cut my hill up too high on my masking paper, so I'm just going to use this little extra piece to give myself a little bit more of a buffer. If you do not have masking tape or masking paper and you want to try to do this, get a repositionable glue. I like the Tombow Mono Multi Glue. Here's where I figure out it's too high and I got to readjust. But anyway, a repositionable glue. I like the Tombow Mono Multi Glue, but there's a few other ones out there on the market. I think Altenews glue pen is also repositionable, and some copy paper. And then you just put your glue. You want to make sure you get it all the way up to the edge. And I used to kind of smear mine with my finger before I started investing in masking paper. And you just want to take that all the way up to the edge, wait until it's dry. It is repositionable after it's dry, and then you can use that as a mask. Another thing that works really well is Post-it notes. This is a little bit big for Post-it notes, but if you're doing something smaller, you can use a Post-it note and get the same kind of masking properties. So here I have the mask for my smaller hill still in place. I have a mask for the sky still in place. And then I'm adding in my green, which is really bright. You don't have to go this bright, but I kind of totally love it. And then I added in some shading with the blue raspberry. I felt like I needed a little bit of a buffer color. And so I went in with, I think it's green apple. And then just kind of went over that before going over it with the key lime fizz just one last time to really be happy with my blend. And this background scene, like these cute little hills with the sky, can be used for a multitude of cards. It certainly doesn't have to be fall themed. It doesn't have to be I guess gnomes or whatever. Like, you could use this for so many things, for little characters. One thing to note is while your ink is wet, and this is true of distress inks as well, the masking paper doesn't necessarily want to stick to it. So one of the ways I get around that is by taking my brush or foam blender over the edge. So I start on my masking paper and then bring it down instead of bringing it up where I would be pushing against where it isn't necessarily sticking the best. I hope that makes sense. So like my edge isn't sticking real well, so I'm coming in from the right-hand side instead of the left, so that way I don't push up that masking paper. If you wait for your ink to be dry, it'll stick again just fine. I just don't have the patience for that. So you do whatever works for you. With that said, now we're going to remove all the masks, and you can see we have two cute little hills and then this nice little soft blue sky, and we could put whatever images we wanted into the background. I am going to be using these cute little gnomes. I think they're totally adorable. If you missed out on the Stamptember set from Brutus Monroe, which was the little gnomes, this would maybe be an acceptable alternative for that. I am going to be doing some Copic coloring with these particular images. I knew that I wanted to do the stripe on his hat. I wanted one of them to be white, and so I am adding all of my shading with the gray markers, and I'm just adding it all over there because I'm going to put red on the other ones, and you won't even be able to see it, and it's easier to shade it all as one than to try to go in there and shade individual ones. Also, anytime you're coloring something white or a lighter color, you want to start with that before you go in with your bolder colors, because your lighter colors will pick up that bolder color if you bump it, and I do all the time because I'm a very messy colorist. It will drag that color, and so I'd end up with like red streaks in my white stripes, and I don't want that. So that's why you want to, get into the habit of starting with your lighter colors. So, this is kind of a long video just because there's so much coloring, and I wanted to leave in, you guys know, if you've been here on my channel, I like to leave everything in, good, bad, ugly, whatever. I like to leave in everything that I can, because it's all a teaching opportunity. So, but we are going to talk about some other things. So in my last video, we started talking about the design teams, and we went in like with what types of design teams they were and how you get onto those design teams. And then we got into a little bit about compensation versus expectations. And that is, it varies so much. So there were some questions that people had asked on the last video, and one of them was, how far ahead do you get the products before the release? This varies. This varies so much. Sometimes you'll get the product super far in advance, and you'll have tons of time to work on it before your deadline. And sometimes, like with Stamptember, like we just did those sets, I got the sets that I got about 2 days before they were set to be released. So not necessarily a lot of time to work, but you have to remember in that particular instance how much is going on for that month for that particular company. So it just kind of depends. And with COVID, and I'm sure you guys have noticed it as consumers as well, I know I have, that things aren't necessarily coming back in stock as quickly, or the releases are maybe selling out super fast, and it's just because production is down, because there was such a backlog from everything being shut down. Another question that was asked about it is, do you have any say in which products you receive? Again, this depends on the company. So I have worked for companies who, when they're compensating you in product, they will send you the entire release and you can pick and choose what you want to work with. I have worked with companies that send you the entire release and then they give you an assignment. These are the ones that you need to showcase. I've worked with companies that will let you pick the product, but you can only pick one or two things. Some companies will let you pick the product and you can pick as much as you want, or there's some that have in the expectations it's spelled out there. Like if you do 2 projects, you can pick 4 products. If you're doing 4 projects, you can pick, 6 products. Some of them have it broken down like super fast. Another question that came up was signing contracts. Some companies require you to sign a contract so that everybody is aware of what the expectation and the compensation is, and then you enter into that agreement by signing the contract. Other companies do not have those, and it's just kind of on the honor system that you say that you do what you say that you're going to do, and that they will say they'll do what they said they were going to do. There are a lot in the contracts is typically a non-disclosure clause, which basically means when you're seeing their new releases that are coming up, you can't share that information with anybody, that you're not going to share with either the consumers or other businesses, maybe competitor stamp companies, that you won't share that information with anyone. So you sign that agreement that says that you will keep their upcoming releases private, which I feel like it shouldn't even be a thing. I think that should be a given, that's their business and their livelihood, and it shouldn't be shared publicly until they are ready to do so. One of the reasons why you wouldn't want your customers to know what's up and coming is simply because it ruins the surprise. It's exciting to see what other companies are going to be coming out with, and I, for one, like the surprise of it. So like, why I wouldn't want to ruin that for somebody else, you know what I'm saying, by telling everybody what is up and coming in the craft world. I'm trying to think if there were any other questions that I missed. I should have made a list. That was really poor planning on my part, to be honest. So there was another comment that said, if a designer is like producing, they're basically the marketing for that company, and they should be compensated, with product and affiliate sales, because they're, a contributing member of that company. And I would tend to agree with that. Card makers are a lot of the marketing for companies. And that is the purpose of having a design team. So I think that comment's pretty accurate. There were several comments about people who have worked in the industry and have been on design teams, saying that they felt like it was a lot, it was too much, that it would ruin their enjoyment of it. And that can totally happen, guys. Like, it really can suck the joy out of it. And I told you in my last video, like, I was at the point where I was on so many design teams and I didn't have any opportunity to kind of play with things that I wanted to play with. So it was really kind of ruining it for me. So anywho, those are just addressing those questions that you had. Now on to, how do I get on a design team? How do you get on a design team? There's a couple of different approaches. First of all, I have had people, like, I know stamp company owners have had people who just email them, hey, are you looking to add somebody to your design team? I'd love to join. Sometimes that works out, sometimes it doesn't, but it is one approach. I've had other companies that say they are specifically looking for people who are already using their product and using it well. So if you're a diehard fan of Stamp Company A and you're using their product, make sure you're putting it in their face. If you're sharing on Instagram, tag them in the photo, use their hashtag. Same thing for, the different card making groups. There's a bunch of different card making groups on Facebook, like Stamp Junkies, Share Handmade Kindness is Jennifer McGuire's group. There's a bunch of different groups that these stamp companies are in. And so if you're consistently putting out product that you're working with, that is their product, they're going to see that and they're going to notice. That's a big way the invite type design team happens. Another way that you can get on, the design teams, or I guess I shouldn't say it's a guarantee. I didn't mean to word it like it was a guarantee. It's a strategy for how to get on a design team, is make sure that you're following them on all of their social media and you're paying attention to when they're having design team calls. That's you have to know what is going on in order to be able to be a part of it. So those are just some things that you can do as far as, things that you can do within your crafting, is to be authentically yourself. And so don't make cards because you think that this card is what's trending, or this card is what is going to be different. Make the things that you love, because the things that you love is what you're going to excel at. And so they want to see their product used in the best way possible, in unique ways, of course, in, ways that maybe they haven't seen it before. Absolutely. But you have to do something that is true to yourself, because that is when you're going to shine the brightest. For me, that's coloring. And there have been times, because I like to try different stuff. You guys know, you watch my channel. Sometimes it isn't always Copic coloring. I like to get out there and dip my toes in the water and see, maybe a little mixed media, or maybe some layering. And I've tried a lot of those things, and some of them are for me and some of them are not. I remember when I first got into, I think clean and simple has been pretty trendy for a long time now, a couple of years. But when I first got into scrapbooking, card making, it was the layers, distressed layers. That shabby chic look was everywhere, was in all the places. And so I tried that and discovered, not only am I not really good at it, I don't really like it. So I look at other people's projects and think, wow, that looks so beautiful, the way that they've layered these things. Same with mixed media. I look at, people like Vicky or Dina Wakely who do this mixed media, and I'm like, that is a gorgeous project, but that's not for me. Like, not that I couldn't do it, I guess. I'm sure that I'm probably capable. I just wouldn't enjoy it. I would not like it. So just make sure that you're doing your thing for you. When I first started my YouTube channel and was kind of finding my own vibe, a friend of mine said, your story time is what sets you apart from everybody else, because nobody's doing that. Nobody is telling, sharing their personal life with these people. It's, 5-10 minute videos of, here's how I made this card, and nobody is making a genuine connection. I don't think that that's necessarily true anymore. I think that you have people who are more commonly sharing, maybe not as much as I do, but, sharing in general. But that's something that set my channel apart, but was still very true to who I am. So back to the card here for a second. There's this little sentiment trick, and you may have seen it before, but Annette had asked me a question on another video about how she can figure out where her sentiment can go without ruining her card. And this is it. So you saw me, I just pulled the acetate off the back of my package. This isn't anything extra that I had to purchase. I'm going to put it in my MISTI. I'm going to pick my sentiment, and then I am going to stamp it. I knew that I was going to stamp my sentiment in black, so I'm going to stamp it on there. This is a great way to try different colors and see if you like them, or try different sentiments to see if you like them. And now that it's stamped, I'm going to take that clear acetate. I have all of my other cards set up, and I'm just going to move it strategically around my card. Because the acetate is clear, it's going to let me see where it's going to be as if I had already stamped it without actually having to stamp it. And so this is a great trick to figure out your layout of your card without having to do anything. And then just to show you that it cleans up super easy. You didn't ruin your packaging. I just have some stamp cleaner here. I put it on a baby wipe and I just wiped the ink away, and I'll be able to put that back on the back of my stamps and nobody will be any the wiser that that's what I used it for. So now I haven't glued anything down. I just have these guys kind of sitting here in my general layout for how I'm going to do it. I knew I was going to pop up some of my elements, and so I needed to get my sentiment stamped first before I went into the gluing. And so that is why I chose to do it that way. Most of them I glued down flat, but I did pop up my big gnome in the front, and I think the little gnome in the back. Did I do the little gnome in the back? I can't remember. I popped up a couple of things. We'll watch it together. So when, you're approaching, like you've decided designing for a company is something that's on your bucket list, just make sure that you're still staying yourself, and that it's a company that you genuinely love, because it's really, really easy to get overwhelmed with the expectations of a company. And like I said in the last video, there's some great ones, there's some good ones, there's some okay ones, as far as what the expectations are. But I would just make sure you're comfortable with what the terms are before you say yes, and then making sure that you have the ability to negotiate. I have a friend, a crafter that I'm friends with, who is endlessly talented. She is amazing. She's worked for multiple people, but because she doesn't have the confidence in herself and she's very anti-confrontational, she never feels like it's okay to say, well, that's too much to ask of me and I can't meet that, for what the compensation is. Or maybe the compensation isn't enough for me to... See, I did pop up both gnomes. I knew what I was talking about. But maybe the compensation isn't enough for me to justify spending that much time. And this is where, the affiliate sales... I remember I worked for a company and I worked for this company and I worked for them for a couple of years, and they were a smaller, company. A lot of these companies are. And I knew that she could not afford to pay me more. But I also knew that I was doing more work than I was being paid for. And so one of the things that when I discussed it with her, I said, what about if we just increase my affiliate percentage? So it's no money out of your pocket unless I'm making the sales to begin with. And that was something that worked for both of us. I felt like I was getting an acceptable amount of compensation, and she wasn't having to pull any more money out of her pocketbook that she was, paying her bills and supporting her family with. And that worked for both of us. So be open to the negotiations. So here, this card is pretty much done. The only other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to color in my outline. You guys have seen me do this now bunches and bunches. It's something that I do all the time for my die cuts. And then I am going to add just a little bit of shimmers, I think. And then that's pretty much going to be it. So I really, really hope that this was helpful to you guys for how you can maybe set some goals for yourself if designing for a company is something that you want to achieve. By no means do you have to want to do that. You don't. It's not, you're not any less of a creator if you're not doing that. The other thing that you guys had asked me to talk about is how to, make money at this and make a living, even though I'm not even doing that. But to, be able to support yourself monetarily. And so we'll have that conversation in another video. It does tie into the design teams. And so I wanted to get those conversations kind of out of the way. if there was something that I missed, I thought I got all the questions that were asked in the previous video. But if there's something I missed or something that you're more interested in knowing more about, please let me know in the comments and I will for sure address it. As far as this particular kit, I also have the small die of the month club, and I will have that video coming up as well. I will link Spellbinders Club kits below. I do think that these are a fantastic value. So you can kind of check those out. And like I said before, subscribe or not subscribe, and just kind of purchase them as they're coming out. So maybe you don't get stuck with something that you're not a big fan of. But I think they're all pretty awesome. And then Spellbinders always has the most amazing sales on their stuff, and they're just constantly adding to it because they're pretty fantastic about that. And so I will also link that below. There's these shimmers that I was talking about because I can't make a card without the shimmers. I do hope that this video was helpful and gave you just a little bit of insight on whether or not that's going to be for you. As always, I appreciate your time. I know that it's very valuable and I appreciate you spending it with me. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.